Can you, not that I don't want to see your face, can you turn your video off? Just, I don't know. It was giving me like, it's saying like your bit rate's low or something. So, dog, I have fast internet. That's the thing. I have really fast internet. Hold on. Oh, it's like, I don't know. I'm supposed to have gigabit. Yeah. All right. What is my, all right. Yeah. It's like 90 megabits. It's one of those things where in my old building, I would get like 600, but in this one, I don't know. It's like the entire building gets a gigabit, and then depending on how many people are actually using it, it gets divided up. Oh, dude, there's more than that. Huh. Yeah, dude. Okay, hold on. I got it. All right. Now I can see myself. I'm streaming it. Okay. All right. I have Jeff is on my headphones, but I don't know if you guys can hear. We're gonna do like a little Lamden chit chat, and I think I can share my screen too, so I can kind of potentially share with you guys some of the stuff because I haven't really done an update, or we haven't done an update. All right, cool. So it sounds like you can hear me. I can also use this as like a facilitation to like answer any questions, anything that like you guys really want to know about the project. And Jeff, can you turn your speaker down? Oh wait, I'll mute you. Wait, no, but I want to hear you. I don't know. Do you have earbuds? Okay. Okay, they can't. You can't hear Jeff. Okay. That's unfortunate. I don't think there's anything we can do about that. I think you're just gonna have to trust me as to what he's saying. But cool. I think yeah, that's true. We have a Google Hangout if you want that you can jump on and you can hear. Hold on. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it is. All right. I gave people the Google Hangout. How do you want to do this? You want to I don't want a whole bunch of randos. Actually, I'm going to delete this. I do not want a whole bunch of random people inside of this. I text from the general community. Just the council members can come in. All right. Oh, well, no, we should stay on the line. I'm talking to Jeff, by the way. So I'm live. I'm talking to Jeff. They cannot hear you. But I'm wondering if we want to have the entire public inside of this room talking to me. I don't necessarily think so because you're supposed to liaison, I'm presuming. So I'm just going to kind of sound weird. But we should do the text stuff on Telegram / here. Yeah. All right. So Kimmy says, you've been coding a lot for the past few weeks. Was BizDev put on hold for the time being? Was anyone on board for the side of that project? Okay, yeah. So we have this business developer, Kevin, who's been working with us, and he comes from a much more like VC world background, like traditional VC world background. And we've been doing a lot of business development. There's also like a pretty decent project that's kind of finalizing, but a lot of the times with someone's joining this. A lot of the times with business development, you can only do so much on one account before it's on the other side, you know? So we've been working this account for a very long time, and it seems like it's finally starting to pay off, so that's good. I don't know, we're doing some other stuff as well. And Jeff, are you there? How much should we just be disclosing about this thing? I don't know. I'm very like, when it comes to disclosing things that haven't happened or are in the process of happening, I don't really like to disclose because I don't want to give like a false expectation of something. That being said, because I'm live, right? So I did just say that. Yeah. Okay, so basically, okay, all right, Jeff is not gonna be able to handicap me. So basically what we're experimenting with, and I would say like actually developing, right? Just I like to be as manage expectations all around. Otherwise you get yourself into Digitex. I'll talk about that later. But we're experimenting. There's a lot of different jurisdictions around the world. There's a lot of different things and areas in which crypto is friendly, crypto is not friendly. What do you do? There's still a lot of experimentation that you can do. And so while people are kind of understanding what this thing is, I think that there is a lot of, there's still a lot of potential opportunity to occur. And one of those opportunities is in the initial exchange offering, which is just an ICO. Someone else is joining. But it's on an exchange. And so the exchange is bearing part of the legal risk. And so our focus is to try to experiment with this idea and then blend it in with Lamdex. And so Lamdex is kind of this place where you potentially launch projects. And when you're looking at the landscape of exchanges, what's the difference between any of them, right? As like an individual who is running one of these crypto companies, I get hit up by exchanges all the time. And they're like, hey, yeah, come, we need more coins, right? That's their I guess that's their value prop. I don't know what the value props of exchanges really are. You just choose one that you like and you use it. And if you're like crap tier, imagine being an exchange operator and you're like crap tier, what are you going to do to differentiate yourself? I don't really know. Lower fees, better user interface, different offerings. And so that's where I think this IEO thing is starting to differentiate, right? Because it's like, oh, on Binance, you have BitTorrent and you could only get it on Binance. And I don't know why you would ever want to get the BitTorrent token. I have problems with it. That's not the point. The point is that it's a unique offering at a point where no one else can offer it at this particular situation. Now, certainly after the IEO, any exchange could pick it up because I think it's just it's like a Tron token or something, you know. But it's until then, it's not. And you actually see this a lot in traditional financial markets, where it's just a primary issuance of, you know, some sort of financial product. And so, you know, like, as it goes, right? Crypto imitates the financial world and will continue to do so until people start to understand exactly where it fits into everything. And that's what we're experimenting. So that's a big sort of push. I would say in terms of like quality and our offering and things like that, very high. I'm very satisfied with it. I don't want to get too much into the details. I would rather just launch it and release it. But this is a demonstration of that, which would then set us up for this entire exchange that we're trying to do, right? That's a big part of the business development. I think I'm going on long about this, but it's just to kind of fill you in with the gaps. So yeah. I don't think we have any other questions right now, but I can also kind of go into, over the last few weeks, I have been coding like crazy. And oh baby, all right, here we go. We got 15 people. Someone says, when Binance? You know, the more you start to kind of see these things happening, the more you see how things are getting played out. So, I mean, Binance is operating in Malta. I don't particularly like Malta from like just a jurisdiction. They have. Jeff says he's half Maltese. Are you really? Really? I don't believe it, but no, they have a corruption problem. So I don't like the government situation there, because I feel like I like crypto because of the transparency, and so I want to go to a jurisdiction that's more transparent. Malta aside, it looks like a great place. It's like a freaking island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Who doesn't want to go there? But when it comes to like the law jurisdiction, Malta, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, was originally like a gambler's sort of jurisdiction. And so a lot of these island nations like Gibraltar or Isle of Man or the Caymans, they don't have like the industry to finance their economy. So they generally become tax havens or very, very, very loose jurisdictions in which to operate. And so Malta definitely falls into that category, and now is basically trying to position themselves as that for crypto, which is fine. I just don't like that they have corruption. And there was a controversy a few years ago about them car bombing a journalist there who was trying to uncover corruption. So I'm not into that. I would rather choose a jurisdiction that is much more transparent. That's just me. Jeff, what are your comments? Yeah. Did I offend you? Jeff says he has no comment on their stance or knowledge of their cryptocurrency stance, but I did not offend him. Therefore, I think I did my job. But yeah, anyways, I see, like, when you look at who's doing what, right? You have Bitfinex, which is in Panama. You have Binance, they bank in Panama, and they're incorporated in Malta. You have this entire, like, Tether now is unraveling, and you suddenly realize that their Panamanian bank is actually not really a bank, and you start to remember that Panama is this huge tax money laundering haven. And then you're like, oh my God, why is this happening? I mean, it's crypto, right? Like, people can get away with that stuff, and that's why you need to have added transparency. So I mean, it's the same thing with Binance and you know, BitTorrent token. Like, are they being as transparent as possible? Are they striving for transparency? No, they're not. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can choose whatever exchange you want. Go for it. I particularly don't like it, and that's not an issue. And so, you know, if the CZ guy came to me and was like, hey, we like what you're doing, you want to be on our platform? Sure. Yeah, I have no objection, you know, but what this project's about is very firm in this. And so based on that firmness, I choose, you know, when asked about it, I choose to say this, and, you know, whether you like it or not, whatever. Someone says, how would you compare Lamden to Komodo? They're also working on exchanges. I think they have a DEX, and they've had a DEX for a while called Barter DEX. They're a Bitcoin based. They're Bitcoin based, and so it's just fine. They have an interesting, like, it's like proof of, I think they call it DPoS, like distributed proof of work or something, where they don't actually do the proof of work. They just kind of copy the block header from Bitcoin, and then they're like, yeah, see, so we put that in our block hash, and then it's like we don't have to do mining, and you trust Bitcoin, so then inherently you trust us. They like borrow it. That's fine. I don't like Bitcoin's code base. I think it's really obtuse. I think that they don't have smart contracts, and it's not a way to really develop. I like developing. I am not a crypto anarchist. Oh, I like money. I was thinking about this the other day, right? All right. So I have a collection of just like foreign currency. When I was a kid, I had a party and I was like, I just want currency. So I have like a stack of this money from like, this is money from 1920s, like Weimar Republic in Germany, from hyperinflationary times. Like every single town had their own currency because the central banks were just like, they couldn't keep, I don't know exactly what it was. They couldn't keep up with the supply, or like if they blew up, you had to have like local currency because you couldn't buy anything because there were no central banks. I'm not completely sure. This is a North Korean 5,000 won. I have a whole set of these. I bought a pack of money on eBay and it came from China. So yeah, they got North Korean dollars out the waz. Here's some more. So if I ever go to North Korea, I can try to bribe my way out of bad times. Got this Zimbabwe, you know. So I like currency. Thanks, Jeff. I don't necessarily like the idea of Bitcoin's code base being obtuse, and I like developing things and building things with money, different kinds of money, and tracking different types of things. So I think that what people basically say is like, oh, well, you're interoperable, just like Komodo is. Okay, great. That's like one thing. Everybody can do atomic swaps. Atomic swaps have been around since 2013. We have a smart contracting language, therefore we can do atomic swaps. That's not the only thing we can do. And so it's a good selling point because like that's something that's needed, but there's a million different things that are potentially possible. And when you have something that's a platform, you want to be able to quantify it in a few words. Interoperability, that's something that people really want. Okay, but what about like supply chain? I don't know. No one really cares about supply chain. Could we do supply chain on our coin? Yes. And then people would be like, oh, you guys are like Ambrosia or whatever. Okay, I guess, sure. But then we're also like Komodo, but Ambrosia. It's like, how do you compare it? So yeah, Komodo's fine. I was in their chat and they're like, the CEO just rips on everything all the time. Fuck those guys. But, you know. Jeff is asking about the over-the-counter aspect of our swap versus their swaps. Look, I think theirs is technically peer-to-peer too, so I don't want to act like theirs is not something that it is. And so they do atomic swaps. Just the issue is that I'm not sure. Like I don't think that they have like they can't decentralize an order book because they don't have a smart contracting language. So they just like hosted this thing. And so I guess yeah, in that case, the barter dex is a Komodo service that they developed versus like ours would technically be more peer-to-peer, and it could have an order book on it, kind of like IDEX or EtherDelta, things like that. But in terms of the atomic swap and what the actual underlying technology is doing, yeah, it's the same. We can do an atomic swap with Komodo, and I guess they could do one with us. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, people get really mad at me because I can't really get into the specifics. So, and the only reason why I can't get into the specifics is because of what I'm about to say. But like, Oh, sorry, I forget. Jeff is asking. He said, "Can I go into the rewards?" So yes, I can go into the rewards. The rewards are all mutable, and the reason why I say this is like everyone's like, okay, how many tokens am I going to have if I have a master node, right? Dude, I don't know. I can't tell you. Like if you go into like Bitcoin Talk and you're scrolling through all the announcements and it's like master node coins, like sure you can buy a whole bunch of their tokens and get a master node that pays out a fixed fee, but like what's that? That doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. The point of the reward incentive system is just like, let's say, gas for miners, like Ethereum, right? You have to pay gas, and you can price that gas more or less. If you have high gas, your transaction is going to get done faster. So as a miner, you would get more for that transaction, right? But you can't predict how much someone's going to pay for gas. They're going to pay as low as possible. So when CryptoKitties was out, everyone was blasting the gas, and miners were very happy. When it was low, okay, whatever, people are mining, but they also have rewards for just mining blocks. And so that's a little bit more like, oh yeah, I don't know what it is, 5 ethers a block or something. Okay, cool. So every 20 seconds, somebody gets 5 ethers. Yeah. For this system, it's a little different. It's that with all the transaction fees, they get pooled together, and then that pool is split across whoever the delegates and the master nodes are in the system. And so what also you have to realize is that the delegates and the master nodes aren't necessarily on the same side, because if they're on the same side, they just collude, right? Like you have this list of collusion. So they're just collude together and they'd be like, yeah, I totally sent 1 million, coins to him, and I'm going to confirm that transaction, even though my balance doesn't say that. Like who's gonna say no? No one's gonna say no, because they're all the delegates. I'll get you on the side, let me transfer $1 million to you, and then you share with everybody else. So the master nodes and delegates have to have different reward structures. Delegates are purely very like short term. They can get voted out. Master nodes, you do not want to get voted out. And so they might have different sorts of requirements. Master nodes are storing a lot more data. Delegates are doing high processing, high CPU, essentially the actual execution of the smart contracts. So over time, maybe storage gets really cheap and it's way cheaper just to run a master node. They're not going to need as big of a share of the transactions. And the delegates might be like, yo, that's not fair because I have to get like the most high-end processor, 24 core or whatever. I deserve to have more share of that pot. So the two sides can vote on that ratio. And that's what I mean. So maybe it's 40% here, 60% here, and the overall pool for a given time is like, 100,000 tau or something. It's in this pot of all of the transactions. So that would get split up over here, and then the rest of it be split up over here. And there's more that I go into in like this blog post that I released, which is also an interesting dynamic, is that the more master nodes that are splitting up that pie, the less each one gets, right? So master nodes don't really want the system to be any bigger. And same with the delegates, right? But the delegates are supposed to be fixed. So how do you like balance the size of the network? Because also if the network is as big as you want it to be, then the speed of the network goes down, because every single node has to connect with each other and they're zipping around the entire internet. And so there has to be some equilibrium, like how much decentralization is enough to do what the network is doing. I don't know. It depends. Like, do you really need 10,000 nodes to run CryptoKitties? Probably not. You're probably fine with like 20, 25. HoloChain kind of talks about this problem as well, and they have a different solution. But this solution is just like the network is going to hit a point where it needs more processing power. And at that point, you're either buying more computers or you're bringing more nodes in. And that's a point by which the share increases. And so that's the basic shtick. Nodes are incentivized to get more users on the platform, because more transactions is a larger pie and they get a slice of that pie. They don't get a fixed like cost or whatever. Like they don't get 1 unit. If there's 1,000 transactions one day, they get their share of 1,000 versus 10 the next day. They get their share of 10. So they're incentivized to get users on the network. So it's kind of like a self-serving system. Yeah, so that's an interesting sort of thing, and that's about as well as I can describe it. It's hard to then say like you're going to objectively get this particular digital amount, in a fixed amount of time. It's hard to do that because it's not really the same. Hmm. Yeah, so Jeff is talking in my ear. It's basically like how do you have like stability? Let's say the price goes up and then the stake amount is like absolutely insane. So all these people they have sunk costs and then other people can't join because it's insane. One of the ways you do that is you have everything denominated in that stamp to tau ratio that I talk about in the blog post, which is that transaction fees aren't in the currency, they're in this ratio thing, and then that ratio thing is voted on to keep the stability of like the overall network costs the same. So like one day a stamp could be half a tau, and then tau goes up 10 times, right? So now instead of 0.5, you want it 0.05. That's how much a stamp costs, right? To balance out that. And so that's one way you can do it, so that the cost of it is it starts off in tau, and then that's denominated in the amount of stamps. Initially the stamp to tau ratio, let's say, is 1. Okay, you have to have 100,000 stamps. There you go, keep them in. And then that would not necessarily shift, where you would be able to redeem your stamps back. The other thing is like the naive solution is that, okay, it's just because this is all versioning as well. So like initial version, you're getting the stake amounts that we've talked about. You're gonna have to be able to withdraw that stuff out. It'd be ridiculous to have that staked in, and I don't think that there's really any additional value added to it. And one of the problems with, I think, proof of stake is that the people who were early on in the network have the largest stake just because they've been around the longest. The guys who have like 10,000 bitcoins, or some guy like bragging about how much Bitcoin he had, and it was just like obnoxious. But like, you're that dude, no getting rid of that guy. That guy's obnoxious. That's not fair. You want the network over time to bring in new people with different sorts of viewpoints. Otherwise, it's not going to be mainstream. It's going to be the same sort of little clique, and that's not really what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so the thoughts that we have behind that is like, oh, sorry, yeah, Jeff is speaking. In terms of like when rewards are paid out, it's like in epochs, right? Where an epoch is a voting period. So like you have a group of delegates and then they change, right? So you don't want them to change too fast. You're like, okay, so the election cycle, this can mimic real life. There's an election term, let's say every 5 years, right? Every 5 years, there's this event that happens. The event spans for a certain amount of time, and then it's over, and then things change between those two times, right? So you're waiting 5 years, nothing's happening. When that 5-year mark hits, something does happen in which you can do something and vote, and then those are all tallied up, and a new set of delegates arises. Obviously, it's not going to be 5 years. It's maybe something like a week or a month or whatever. That's a variable that can be voted on as well. But it's denominated in those potential shifts, right? And so that's the easiest way, because you have that same set of people there, and then, okay, that pool is out, and this is the new pool that's in, and then you can allocate based on those sorts of pools. So like, if half the people churn, it's easier just to start a new pool from that point, and then people can withdraw from the previous pool. People bring this up. Someone in the council. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we got to figure out so Jeff can kind of speak through. Have we thought about third-party masternode hosting? I don't really see the point, and it's not to say that there's nothing invaluable about what they're doing, but from my standpoint, it's like, how much do you want a service provider basically having power over the network versus, how about community hardware and people like building a rig, plugging it in. So there's like a dichotomy. It's like full service automation, right? And what you get from that is a completely centralized authority who has all of the racks on their server, and they're like, yeah, trust us, we'll keep your keys all safe and we'll manage payouts and all that stuff. Okay, that's fine. I don't choose anything. And then there's the other end, which is, okay, you're going to go out, you're going to build your rig, you're going to hook it all up, you're going to air gap everything. It's going to be super secure. It's in your like vault, blah, blah, blah. And it's a completely decentralized network. Two dichotomies, right? Run it over Tor, all that stuff. Okay, great. It's up to you, right? Like the thing that I say is like, all right, there's a good middle gel, which is like, just get a cloud provider for now, or if you have an old computer, plug that in, install Linux on it, and the guides that we will be creating are going to be simple enough that if you have any sort of software development experience, you're going to be able to install this. And if you don't, I would look at how DigitalOcean kind of lays out their tutorials. It's really simple. It's like how to install blank on your DigitalOcean droplet. Type in this command. Okay, now type in this command. All right, now you enter the configuration. You press enter, and then you close the terminal, and it's running. Like that sort of automation is what we're striving for. So yeah, I'm looking at the chat. We got a guy. We got Marcin. He wants to be unbanned. We can arrange that. Don't worry. Jeff says he'll see what he can do. Yeah. Okay. All right. So basically, Jeff is saying that I should go into the updates. So I'm going to go into the updates. We did a complete rewrite of Seneca. A lot of work, but it all works. And it's much more from the ground up, well tested, just like very streamlined. It's all good. There's like one thing that we've punted, and we've punted it only because the solution is very straightforward, and it's more like when we connect Seneca to Cilantro, which will be happening next week, we'll in the fury of that, we'll be solving that problem. And that's I call it built-in shielding. So when Python's running, it tends to try to stuff in like built-in functionalities, and you just want to remind Python like, hey, no, do not do that. This is a very like low-level Python technical thing, if that's possible, because Python's very high level. But that's one of the things. Also, like seeding contracts, like what is the set of contracts that exists when you boot up the network? So one of them is there's a smart contract to submit smart contracts, which is ironic, but it has to do with like the way that we parallelize everything, and you need to be able to quantify what keys are being getting set. And so the best way to do that is to have the same flow for all transactions, and some of those transactions are submit contract transactions, and everything is in Lamden's contract. So guess what? We have a submit contract, and then that contract has a special mechanism in which it gets loaded into the system. And there might be other ones as well, like the currency one, like the atomic swaps, maybe not, but that's basically what we're talking about. But Seneca in of itself is great. It works. I'm gonna see if I can do like a screen share. I don't know if I can. I used to be able to, I think. 1 sec. Screen share YouTube Live. How do you share your screen on YouTube? Click screen share. Okay, that's not helpful. Nada. I'm trying to figure out how to do screen share. All right, they don't. Okay. I'm gonna look at the code. You guys are gonna trust me. I'm gonna take a break in a few seconds. I'm I'm gonna take a break now. Sorry, Jeff. I know you just came back, but I'm gonna take a break now. I'll be back. I just gotta, take a break. Go to the boys' room, get a drink. Yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Jeff, can you hear me? Oh, thanks. Jeff says I'm doing great. That's kind of you, Jeff. Um, I was going to show you something. I was going to show you guys something fun, which is this is like if I had infinite time, I would do more of this. No, it's similar. All right, so he's asking about the pixel thing. All right, so as a kid, I loved Yu-Gi-Oh. So now that I'm doing stuff, I bought a whole bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh cards because like you can get some Blue Eyes White Dragons for like $1 or something. So it's like sweet. So I got a whole bunch of Blue Eyes White Dragons, and that kind of like it's like this is what I'm talking about. This is the same sort of like whatever this is like why I like this many. Miner Man says that a Cloud Monet behind you. No, that's not actually. Real quick, this thing I found this in like an art. It was like a warehouse that was converted into artist studios, and this lady was selling all of her late husband's artwork, and this is one of them, like from his college years, from like 1975, and I'm like, what the hell, dude? It's really interesting. So yeah, my mom got it for me for Christmas. Yeah, really, really weird in terms of like just finding it. Like I don't really look at a lot of art and I'm like, whoa, but that was one of them. Other ones I can't really purchase because they're in museums and stuff. But yeah, I also have a whole bunch of these Slifer's, the Sky Dragon, which is the same thing. It's like $1. They're like $1 a pop, and it gets into like this entire concept of whatever itch this scratches, it's the same itch that this scratches, and it's like this concept of like these collectible things, and then ascribing something to what this is. Like whatever this is, it's more than just like the paper, right? And like, this is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card of all time. It's like a card. It's a stupid card, but it's like whatever that perception is of the value. That's the interesting part to me, and so that's also why I really like crypto, because you can experiment with a whole bunch of different stuff. Seneca is interesting because if you take that concept and you're like, okay, how do you do like trading cards or tokens or something, and express it in a way that like people who like this stuff are not the same people who are like coding all the time. I mean, there's probably an overlap, but like you got to realize that the artistic people and the creative people aren't necessarily the technical people. So you got to like meld them together. So all of these past 2 weeks with Seneca has been rewriting a lot of the stuff, making sure the interfaces are good, adding features that allow you to really quickly, I mean like super fast, create smart contracts that are expressive and allow you to do what you got to do. Like, so there's the atomic swap contract that we wrote for Ethereum was 90 lines of code, and you're able to express the same exact functionality in 30 in Seneca. So like 30 lines, that's a lot quicker, you know, it's a lot less thinking. There's a lot less that you have to be worried about in terms of like the low level code. This is a very heated debate in the entire crypto world, which is like, is it high level or low level? And Solidity is a lot lower level. You have to worry about like what types things are. You have to worry about a whole bunch of different subsets, like, okay, memory versus storage. There's a weird sort of like distinguishing aspect where you don't really know if you're new to programming. It's not easy to tell. The way we've developed it is very easy. You get a namespace of data, and you can do whatever you want in that. So you can say, I want a hash map, and a hash map is just like you map one value to another. So you map like Stuart to his balances, and that's inside of your namespace, like your smart contract memory, and everything else is just runtime stuff. So if you initialize a variable and you don't initialize like a Seneca variable, it's not getting stored. And with the Solidity, it's not quite as clear as that, but it's like you're writing to a database. Did you write it to the database? If you didn't, it's not there. It's out of memory. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna open this up by Charm. I'm gonna kind of run through. So today I was kind of playing around with trying to get it faster. So the theoretical limit of like pure memory Python of Seneca is probably about 4,000 transactions per second of raw execution. That is not happening. That was not happening. I would be very satisfied with 2,000 to 3,000. Right now we're at like 1,400 consistently, and that's with this rewrite. And so like we might have said, I think we were saying 2,600 before. And so and just to give you like, I also don't want to scare people. On Friday, it was 200 and it's 1,400 now. So I've been able to like optimize it just in the last, 2 days. So I don't have any qualms that we're going to get there. Theoretical upper limit is 4,000. I'm going to push that as much as possible. What that probably means is we're going to have to experiment with different storage drivers, because I've been doing performance testing. I have this performance tester that I run 1,000 transactions, and it tells me what functions are taking the longest. I've gotten it to that the importing and executing of that transfer function is the second slowest thing. So that's the smart contract executing is slower than something else. So that's really good. That should be the slowest part. The slowest part right now is actually in the Redis driver. It's serializing commands and deserializing commands where I need it. Redis has like extra stuff on top of it. So I'm trying to get like lower. I'm trying to find like a database that is even less. So like Redis gives you like lists. It gives you, ranked sets. It gives you like all this other fancy stuff. And that's slowing it down because there's different layers on top of it where I just want to like get a key, set a key. So I'm looking at levels. I'm looking at rocks. Those will probably be able to speed things up. And then once it's there, you're going to be able to get up to the upper echelon, because if you're writing pure in memory, like I said, it's 4,000. And the chances of you writing pure in memory smart contracts and it actually being executed on a blockchain like that is not very likely. Like you have to bubble out of memory. RAM's expensive. So you have like 64 gigabytes of RAM. That's a hefty system. And blockchains are much larger than that. Although the state of the blockchain is not the same as the entire blockchain, but that's still a lot of state to hold in memory, and it might bubble over. So I don't want to like overpromise that. But theoretically, at this point in time, a transfer is, you can get 4,000 transfers in a second, which is not bad. Jeff is saying the 64 gigabytes on your RAM stick isn't supposed to be usable all at once. What do you mean by that, Jeff? So what Jeff is making the distinction between, he's like, oh, well, you don't need to access the whole blockchain. You only need to access certain parts of it. And that's true. That's what the distinction between state and cold storage is. So cold storage is all the transactions, and state is the calculations to get to that point and at that current time step 0, which sounds really complicated, but it's really just like, okay, today this is the balance of everybody, and then a transaction comes through, and that transaction has instructions and it changes those values. However, that transaction then goes away into the blockchain, but those values stay. So the state is all those values at any particular set in time before and after a transaction occurs. So yes, it's going to be, that's much smaller, but you still want to make sure. I'm going to talk about Digitex. Yeah, you want to make sure, without over-promising things, that you make sure that everybody's expectations are managed, unlike Digitex. So yeah, any other questions? Oh. Yeah, so I did a whole rewrite. The interfacing, I'm trying to think what exactly I want to. Seven says, can we get Digitex like ending of the video? Sure. I just have an itch I want to scratch. Let's see, what else did I do? I wrote an ERC20 clone. It works. I wrote the atomic swap thing and I tested it all. It works. So like, guys, this is going from like nada. Like we were at a point where we would be like, okay, I need to test smart contracts and see what the security holes of this are. And the system was just not there. Or it'd be like, okay, there's one more bug. And then they come back and then like 2 more bugs would be up. And I'm like, yo, what about that other bug? And then it's like, oh, well, we solved that. But that bug is actually preventing us from going further into the code, which then this showed us 2 bugs. So it's like, at this point, we just had to scrap it and redo it, which is fine. It was very fine. I had a fun time doing it. But now we're able to actually test out smart contracts. So like atomic swaps work, doing unit tests on them. They work. Life is good. Funky stuff, trying to do funky things, accessing variables from other smart contracts that you're not supposed to. It works. There's this thing that you can do, which is really nice. Oh, everything in the state of the database is stored in JSON. So caveat is that right now we're using Redis, which is really easy. I have a nice GUI that I can look at all the keys, and I don't know what the palette is for like a level DB GUI or a Rocks DB GUI. But right now you can look at all the keys and they're all in JSON. And JSON is like the universal standard for just storing data and moving it around the web. So it's really, really easy. And you can store complex data types. You can store multiple things inside of, hold on. I'm going to paste something, and it's not going to seem that impressive, but it actually is really impressive. So like if I wanted to store multiple information inside of a swap, I would just like express it like this. Like, okay, so swaps, you do this thing. Like you create a hash map and you can have as many fields as you want. You can have up to 16 dimensions. And you can just put whatever you want inside of those dimensions, given that the entire key space is less than a kilobyte, which is fairly big, right? So you can like swaps, you can have 16 different parameters, equals, and you can have a massive list of stuff. And each element in those lists can be a different type. In terms of the swaps, the dimensions could be ints, they could be strings. I haven't tried anything else out, so don't try it or be surprised if it blows up. But it like the alternative is mappings in Solidity, which are really hard, and they only map to one type. So yeah, someone asked, ever played League? No, my brother played League a lot. I played Factorio. Factorio's fun. I played something called RuneScape. I did play RuneScape. 2007 RuneScape. I got one of the first experiences playing RuneScape. I think this is for all little boys, all 12-year-old boys, of like the generation that played RuneScape. Is that someone tricks you to follow them into the wilderness when you're level 3, and then they just murder you. And Jeff's laughing. And my mom still brings this up because I guess that happened to my brother. It happened to me and it happened to my brother, but it like bummed him out so much that my mom still brings it up. She's like, it was so terrible. I'm like, yo, you don't even know. And my parents are getting into memes now. They're like backlogged on memes. They're like bringing up like, if you guys remember Group X, like Swifty5 or whatever. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but they're like albino black sheep memes. They're like showing me this stuff, and I'm like, yo, yeah, where you guys been? That's been around for a while. So interesting phenomenon. Ask your parents about the memes. Why Yu-Gi-Oh, not Magic? Jeff says. I didn't. Well, so when I grew up, like there are different card games, right? And my parents, I had like girl cousins that I saw all the time, and Yu-Gi-Oh is not really a girl thing, and neither is Magic. So I actually had Pokemon cards and Pokemon games and all that stuff, so we could play together. But then when I was in 3rd grade, that was like Pokemon was stupid, and dude, like Yu-Gi-Oh is way cooler. And like at that point, Magic wasn't even a thing. And I remember when I got shown Magic, it was from my friend, and it was his stepdad, who is like hardcore geek. He's like trying to teach his stepson Magic, and like he played it, right? And I was just like, nah, dog, I don't know what the hell's going on. I tried. We actually ordered because like this whole concept, just for like stuff in the office to spur the imagination. I ordered a whole bunch of Magic cards, and I didn't read the description right, and so I got a box. Like for $20, you get like thousands, and they didn't mention that it was thousands of cards, but only like 12 cards. So we have like 500 of the same card just going around. That's kind of funny. Anyways, I don't know. It was like I grew up like that, and no one introduced Magic to me. And I think it's one of those games that's kind of complicated that like dads teach their sons. Jeff, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Jeff is saying that none of his kids, they play Pokemon cards, but they don't really play it, they just collect them. And I attest to that. Yeah, that's what I did too. Like the game is not that fun, to be honest. It's a shitty game. It's actually made by the same people who did make Magic, but it's not fun. Yu-Gi-Oh is way funner, more fun. But Yu-Gi-Oh is also like, Yu-Gi-Oh is not a good game. It's not a good, well-designed game. My best friend in high school, I didn't know this until like I was about to graduate and like leave the city I was in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, dude, I like have every single Yu-Gi-Oh card." I'm like, "Haha, yeah, okay." Nah, him and his dad literally have every Yu-Gi-Oh card and every single combination that was like a very, very potent combination, and like a dozen of them, not just like one, not just like, I have like a set of Exodia. He's like, that's Exodia stupid. Like this is way cooler. It's like, oh damn. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but yes. Oh yeah, people are talking about Bubble. Jeff is asking about Bubble. What about a Bubble, Jeff? Yeah. So Jeff is asking why Bubble. What is it? So I don't know. You've probably heard like a lot of projects will say like, oh, it's like the WordPress of crypto. It's like the blah 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 of crypto. Okay, yeah, people say these things, but what they really mean is that like the development process is really simple. So Colin, actually, when we hired him, he's like, "Oh, have you guys heard of Bubble?" And it's like, no, we have not. And it wasn't until we were started to do like a rapid prototype of something that we're like looking at Bubble. And Bubble's actually really good at making very fast and dynamic websites. And at Colin's old business, they actually use Bubble on the back end, and they're selling like mid 6-figure contracts to like massive corporations, and they'd log in as this Bubble page. And so to give it's kind of like a drag and drop web app creator, but dynamic. Like you can dynamically create new pages, you can dynamically pull information from a database, and it's very straightforward. So the reason why we're integrating it is that it's powerful, and you can do like things such as smart contract construction or sending a transaction, and it's powerful enough to let you do that, but still easy enough to not require any programming. Yeah, that's the thing. There's no programming required. So it's cool. I was like, I never heard about it before, and then Colin was like, yeah, we should do it, and he implemented the plugin. The reason why we implemented the plugin was so that we could create applications really quickly for potential customers and things like that, and so we can like have an interactive experience with them, because when you're developing software, it's a back and forth, right? Like you develop and then you present, you develop and then you present. Oh, yes. And here's the problem. But Jeff is saying if I unplug my headphones, you can hear Jeff. And the thing that I'm worried about is that my laptop fell off of my nightstand, and because they got rid of the MagSafe stuff, the power thing jammed into the speaker and blew the speaker for some reason. So if it gets too loud, it pops and then gets super muffled. So we can try. We'll try, but it also might not work. Just a caveat. Okay. Jeff, can you say something?
Can anyone hear me? Oh, I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah, people say it works.
Yeah, it works?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's amazing.
Okay, cool. I'm going to keep it at this level then, because it shouldn't. Can you say something again?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's up, guys?
Jeff is here. Okay, it should not pop at this level. It pops when I'm like listening to like music, or it pops if I'm watching one of those videos that's like a meme video, and then like something really loud happens and it like makes the speakers clip, and then it gets all muffled. It's really weird. Will you yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, no, so you were just talking about Bubble, and you were talking about creating things with Bubble. So you created a Pixel D app, right? And then you used Bubble to create a front end for it.
Yes.
So maybe just talk a little bit about how like blockchain is kind of like the back end technology, and it needs a front end to really like a D app needs a front end. So maybe just talk about what your experience was with that.
So I mean, I've been around crypto for a very long time, right? And it was interesting to me. I got shown it, and it was like, oh, this is cool. And I ordered Bitcoin on a MoneyGram phone, the CVS, and I had to like be very vague with the cashier because she didn't understand what the hell I was talking about when I was trying to get help. And then I knew about Ethereum, I knew about Augur, and I knew about these smart contracts, but I wasn't really pushed into it until Bitcoin hit 1,000, and then I was like, yo, this isn't a joke anymore. Ever since then, like before that, I was like, this is stupid, this is so dumb. Or I'd like log in, I'd look at the price every once in a while and be like, why is it worth that much? This is so stupid. And then it hit 1,000, and I'm like, okay, it's not stupid. There's something's going on. And then I looked into Ethereum, and I'm like, I should learn this, because I was doing software development for startups at that point in time. I was like, I have spare time as my own boss to kind of research this stuff. And I was doing machine learning before that, and I want to do Ethereum. And my cousin's boyfriend at the time, who was also like super into what me and my friends in that city at that time were doing, was like, oh, Ethereum. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I know about that. Like, who cares? I actually made an arbitrage bot for that, and I had it when it was $5, and then I sold it because I thought it was stupid. But I got back into it, and I was like, oh, this is actually cool. What blockchain is really good at is it's a distributed database that everybody can see, and people who write things on top of it can manage the permissions in such a way that it creates an interesting application. And that's cool. I like that. But it's just the database part of it. And it's the writing of like those little scripts or whatever, those contracts. And so basically, someone says, am I spliced with Steve Jobs' DNA? I don't think so, but I'm flattered. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's just the database and these little scripts. It's like the easiest way to explain it to somebody is like a very complex, customizable SQL prepared statement. Like if you're talking to like some really like just been in the zonk land in like Microsoft Access, like corporate world for 20 years, you tell them that and they'll understand what you're talking about. But that's it. So you need to interact with it, and that's the front end portion. And what Ethereum did was they made a smart contracting language. They're very opinionated about what they do. They made it in Go, which is a very opinionated language that not everybody agrees with, and kind of flies in the face of what the entire software industry has been doing for like 30, 40 years. And yeah, maybe they have some good points, but not good enough points to introduce a new technology and then introduce a completely new way of doing things and then have not very good documentation. So I was very frustrated at that. And then they're like, oh yeah, you want to like develop front ends with it. And you're like, yeah, all right, sweet. Here's this really obtuse, strange protocol that doesn't adhere to any web standards. And here you go. Here it is. And if you want to inspect things, it's hard to do that. And if you ever use dApps like IDEX or things like that, you'll notice it's kind of laggy and it doesn't really work very well and it's slow. And people are like, oh, over time it'll get better. No, it won't. Unless the block times get shorter, it's not going to get any faster. I don't know what people are saying. And that is crucial. It doesn't matter what you're storing on the database. If it can't be presented in a good way, then it doesn't matter. And part of what I did leading up into the point that I'm at right now is translating what people want their experience to be, developing it in code, and then presenting it in a way that makes sense. And interaction is everything, you know? People will be very opinionated about technology. They'll be very opinionated about a whole bunch of stuff, and they'll isolate people, and they'll talk to, you know, each other and just be eggheads with each other, and nothing matters. It's not until somebody comes and takes it and says, thanks, I'm going to go apply this to like the real world now, and then they make a fortune. You know, it happens every single time. And so for something like this, it's really important to be able to say like, oh, this makes sense. This is a very easy to use smart contracting language that I don't really need to know a whole bunch about. And then I can use something like Bubble or something to piece something together, and life's good. So that's really what the front end is supposed to be. We haven't done a lot of thought into what we want the front end to be ultimately in terms of like the front end development experience. We have the back end development experience, but the entire team's like heavy back end systems developers. So we don't, it's not like we don't care, but we're like, oh, the protocol, we got to get the protocol perfect first. We can add the front end on later. It's not a big deal. And so then when does the front end get developed? You know, in terms of like the framework. Right, Jeff?
Yeah. So one part of the front end people are asking about a lot actually is the block explorer.
Yeah.
You know, people love their block explorers. You know, there's a bunch of them out there. You know, you got to have it. You got to look up your address. You got to see. You know, it makes it all very real to people. This is my address. This is my transaction. This is what I did. Everyone can see it. You know, so people really want to know about that. What's our approach on that?
So yeah, a block explorer, like there's different when you go to an interface. There are generally two approaches. Like, let's talk about a block explorer in a second. The same thing applies to, well, actually, let's talk about a block explorer now. It might be a little simpler, so then I can extrapolate later. Go to a block explorer. You either know exactly what the hell you're doing, and you know exactly what you're looking at, and you have a very directed search, and you use that search bar to find exactly what's going on. You know, you put in your transaction hash, you're there, it's not confirmed yet. Okay, fine, right? Or you don't really know what you're doing, and you're kind of interested in Ethereum, and so you're kind of looking at it like bouncing around. Who has the most money? Let's like click back and like try to track it and have some fun. Look at all the tokens, and that's much more exploratory, like behavior.
That's the explorer part of it. Yeah.
Right. But those are two very different use paths, right? And you actually will use some of the same tools in both of those, but like a system that has a ton of data generally has those two search paths. So like look at Facebook. You either are going on there to talk to somebody or to post something or to do something very explicit and you know exactly how to get there. Where you're just scrolling, kind of clicking through, hey, look at them. Hey, we got mutual friends, blah, 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 blah. Clicking through stuff, kind of exploring. Facebook wants you to like, I guess, look at their groups, but I feel like their groups are kind of isolated in this weird box thing. But like, you know, I think it's similar in like there's a directed search path and an exploratory search path. So when we are developing the block explorer, it's like, okay, what's the direct search path and what's the exploratory search path? Well, the direct search path is always very easy to do. You say, okay, people want to look at their balance and they want to look at the state of their transactions and things like that. That's easy. That's done. What's harder is how do you present an interface that is exploratory and can actually educate you in terms of like what the system is and how it works. Because even if you're just going around on Etherscan and you're clicking on things, you can read the contracts and stuff like that. You kind of start to understand how things work just by coming through the information. So that stuff is really cool. Our system's a lot different where there is more opportunity to expose the data in the open. Like all the smart contracts are open source by default, whereas on Ethereum, they're all compiled bytecode by default. So like 90% of the smart contracts that are out there, you can't read. And so that's something that you can do. In terms of like introspective, like looking at different things, you can't explode out an entire smart contract and see all the balances of every single person. You have to know what their address is prior. In this regard, you can just explode it. You definitely can do that. And then we have like a RESTful API that you can hit on our Anarchy net that's like, give me the balance, like who has a balance key? And it'll just give you all the people who have a balance of that particular asset. And then you can go in and introspect. So you can do a lot of different stuff, and you can do listing and things like that. So with that in like the mind, we're looking at it like structure it like a file system that people are used to. And every smart contract has its own sort of folder that it lives in, and it has certain attributes that don't change, like what the code is, what the name is, and things like that. But inside it has variables, and those variables are folders that have other different containers of small files. You could think of it like that. So that's kind of the approach we want to go. And it's probably going to look a little bit different than what people are used to.
Yeah, because our technology is a little bit more complicated, the Block Explorer becomes a little bit more complicated. It's not so straightforward. Yeah, not so straightforward.
Yeah. So people are now asking, which is makes sense because I'm like, yeah, you can see everything. What's up with the privacy thing? Yeah, privacy is it's an interesting thing. So privacy, that's not something that we have explored because we think that it inherently prevents what we're trying to do right now. And that doesn't mean that later on we want to have privacy, but it's extremely, extremely hard to do a true privacy coin or whatever that's also smart contracts. Like Ethereum says they're doing it. It's still extremely hard. And the proposals, if you look at the proposals that they have, they are very obtuse in the way that they do them and they execute them. The ZK snarks, what the hell is that thing? No one can explain what it is. Like, okay, so you have this complex concept, and then you have like a whole bunch of like complex things on it, and then you have these ZK snarks, which are just like absolutely insane. Not to say that they're not cool, and not to say that like there isn't anything to them, but we want to solidify a base first. We don't necessarily want to, I say this like alienate, right? Because also if you look at like Monero, what's the reputation of Monero? That's the reputation of like criminals and kidnappers and shit like that. And I don't believe in that as as to say like, therefore it's bad and we should not do it. No, that's not true at all, because they were saying that about Bitcoin back in the day, and that's not exactly true at all. The core of what Monero is good at is it's good at being a privacy coin in the way that they like the cryptographic schemes and stuff are sweet, and people should be able to do that. And it's no different than just stuffing a wad of cash in your pocket and walking around, you know, like that's very non-traceable as well. Or, you know, taking out and finding a whole bunch of coins. There's ways that you can do that stuff. And so I don't think that's a problem. But what I think it does potentially do is it puts a spotlight on you as bucking the system in terms of saying like, yeah, dude, we're here to obscure your shit and we're going to hide it real good. Because guess what? Then you have a whole bunch of people snooping around your shit because you potentially have criminals on your shit, and they're very, very, very it's not ideal. This is just the situation as it is now. And that doesn't mean that as things change and as people become more open-minded, things change. We already are against a culture that's very closed-minded about this stuff. I don't want to add more onto it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. How much time do you have, Stu? Or how much longer do you want to do this for?
I'm not going anywhere. What's up?
Okay. Well, there's just a bunch of questions. So there's a couple questions that maybe we want to hit at the end. So I just wanted to know where we were at. But more to that though, you guys says we've got a question here. So you guys are making it possible to let companies create their own version of maybe some one-trick pony coins. So
I'm interested in what that means, but sure.
Well, so to create something with Lamden using our blockchain of your own company, like a private chain.
Right.
So can you talk about like that's enterprise cilantro. So can you maybe talk about enterprise cilantro?
Sure. And this was in like the original, like the OG white paper. And what I'm appreciative of, like the community, is that as things have sort of morphed and changed, people have been generally chill with it, and I appreciate that. In the original white paper, it was very much about like, oh, there's going to be a whole bunch of different blockchains, and everybody's going to have their own little silo. That's very much true still. So the enterprise edition is like still tapping that need, but in a directed effort. Like, yeah, people will want this stuff now, and they want to do proof of concepts now, and they're asking us to do this stuff. And so we need to be able to have something that we can just deploy out of the box, and that's what the enterprise edition is. There's certain aspects of the enterprise edition that will be different than the public edition. For example, the enterprise edition doesn't necessarily need metering. It doesn't necessarily basically metering is like counting up how many stamps you have, and then if you didn't put enough stamps in your transaction, it blows up because of the trusted system. Doesn't necessarily need an audit layer because you trust everyone who's using it. It doesn't necessarily need like witnesses or as robust of a decentralization path. So actually delegates and masternodes are the same. And that's where it branches. And then it starts getting interesting. It starts getting into like, then you have like multi-consortiums, and then it's Raghu is like piloting it from there. I'm off of this, right? I'm off of the enterprise thing, which is a good distinction. When you're doing a business, you can't be in everything. And so that fork is very good to have Raghu move forward and take control of that. And then I think I fit more into the public network and the cultural like path of that, which is perfect, right? And so part of what he wants to do is do a blockchain network of blockchains, right? So like a bank might be in 10 different consortiums, and then it only does consensus on those 10 contract related things. And so it's this web type shtick, right? And that might be applicable to the public net, but it's not demanded from the public net right now. The public net needs auditing and needs to make sure that's not being hacked or spam attacked or things like that. So those problems need to be solved first. So that's where the diversion is. Also, the Enterprise Edition allows us to be able to fund what we're doing because we can use that as a software license and things like that. But besides that, it's the same sort of core tech. They might have particular needs where it's like we want our own smart contracting system that's a little bit different. And so like we're not going to release it on the public network because we're just going to stick with the one that everybody likes. And then they might have a specific use case for like, oh, we want, you know, like for example, there's a database called KDB that all the financial institutions use. We want one that plugs into KDB. Well, PublicNet doesn't want that because KDB is closed source and it costs $250,000 a license a user. So no one's going to use it on the public network, but these big institutions might. And so, yeah, sure, we'll plug it into it. Anyways, yeah, does that kind of answer the questions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we got some questions on like, do you listen to Ethereum core dev meetings?
No.
At all? No. Do you what? Well, I know that you do pop into certain Telegram rooms here and there. Well, yeah. What Telegram rooms are you in, and do you follow?
And look, there's nothing wrong with Ethereum core dev or they had like their CBC Casper meetings and things like that. But I know what I'm getting into, and I know that I don't really have the patience, nor do I care enough about it. And so I just don't, you know. I will go into Telegram groups. Maybe this is where I blend in Digitex because this is the answer, right? Like today, I went to Digitex and I watched the video and I'm like, all right, so I know just from my experience, and I'm not here to think that I don't think I'm better than anybody. I don't think that
people demand answers from you constantly, you know. So do you find that maybe you like to go get some answers from other people?
Actually, yeah, that's an interesting like posit, right? But I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think it's more like I see people doing dumb shit and it really pisses me off. And I'm like, guys, no. And then I'd be critical. And then there hits a point where it's like, oh shit. And then I get banned. Generally is what happens. I mean, not always. So like for the Digitex thing, basically I watched the video. I don't know if you guys have. And it was pretty funny in terms of like, it wasn't funny. I think that what they did, the correct thing. They went with Spotware. That was a very good business decision. Spotware makes CTrader, great piece of software. There's absolutely no reason why you would think that they would turn up a load of crap, right? So from a business standpoint, they made the correct decision. And they were like, they felt pressure on the community. The guy said that the market responded well, you know, whatever that means. I didn't really understand what he meant by that, but good decision. I agree with that guy, 100%. Where it started to break down was you started to understand that this dude was not technical. He did not understand. It's like a mechanic trying to run an auto shop and he doesn't know how to fix an engine. Like, how
do you think he didn't have any technical people underneath him though that understood it?
From what I understand, he was like, have you seen the video, Jeff?
I haven't yet, no.
You have not? Okay. So basically he's like, yeah, so we got it back. And then I was like, we need this bug fixed. And they were like, no. It's like that kind of stuff. So from that dynamic, I was getting a lot of project owner versus project manager interaction, which generally happens with the contracting team.
Lamden has outsourced a couple different things, so you sympathize with that, I guess.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of where I'm going too. So we've also had some not great experience with contractors as well, and it started like the lights started banging off my head. I'm like, this sounds exactly like what we went through. So like the spot where people came back and they're like, here you go, and then the CEO's like, yo, dog, this has a shit ton of bugs in it. What am I supposed to do? And they're like, well, okay, we'll fix them real quick. And then they go back, right? And then they fix them. And the CEO's like twiddling his thumbs, come back. And they're like, yeah, JK looked into it, said it wasn't a big problem. Guess what? Actually is a big problem. And then that's where things break down. And I've dealt with this not only from a contractor's perspective as like the buyer, but also from a contractor's perspective as the seller, trying to be like, yeah, so one of the things that he said was, oh, there's this rounding error issue, like that we were like losing money because we had a round, and I knew exactly why. And he was like, I can't understand it. It's a freaking like rounded number. Just fix it. It's not that simple. And I know this only because I'm technical enough to understand that CTrader is a piece of software written for traditional financial markets, which have decimal points of either 2, right? Because it's like there's 2 digits of precision there, up to 6 generally for Forex. And crypto tokens, for whatever reason, have 18. They have 18 digits. I don't know why, but everybody is like, yeah, we want 18 digits of precision. Okay, so now you have 12 digits of lost precision on a system that has been working for years. CTrader has been out for years and is like industry standard on a lot of different systems. And then you're asking them to now change the architecture from 6 digits of precision to 18 digits of precision. That is not necessarily very easy to do. And you start to see that this stuff is like, okay, this dude doesn't actually understand why things are breaking, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the answer is not to say, fix it. The answer is not just to say, like, do what I say. You know? He also was like, and so what we're doing is a rapid shift. We already have a team set up in Serbia, which is, okay, I know why they're setting up a team in Serbia, because Eastern Europe has a lot of technical talent and it's very cheap. Well, it's not very cheap. It's like, yeah, it's good. I have no problem with it. It's like good outsourcing tech, you know? And I went to the chat and I was kind of like poking around and I brought it up. It's like, seems like you guys are outsourcing to Serbia. But their position is that, no, we're bringing it in-house. High quality assurance time. They're not. They just straight up are not. They have a team in Serbia. Their headquarters is not in Serbia. And so there's still like this discrepancy. So what my problem is that I get into these rifts with these people where I'm like, you're not really being completely honest here. Like, you're saying that you're taking control of it, which is fine. You are. You're not relying on a complete contractor to give you a turnkey solution, but you're hiring Serbian developers, which are in a completely different country, which is in a completely different culture. You can't really speak the language. They're probably speaking like, if he's English, right? So they're speaking English. They know Serbian first. Like, so all these nuances of communication start to break down, and you don't actually know it. That is an issue. That does happen. And he's just like, yeah, let's go. So I'm trying to bring that up, and I just got banned because.
You banned now?
I'm banned now. Yeah. And my alt got banned. I like logged in with my alt. I'm like, why'd you ban that guy? And then he got banned.
Are you limited now? Do they report you spam?
Oh, dude, I don't fucking know. I made some friends there too. I made like 2 friends, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, you got banned." I was like, "Yeah, fucking know."
Maybe they'll petition for you. You can get back in.
I know. One guy says I should go to the AMA, and then I should talk up. But I don't care. My thing is like, as someone who's gone through that, again, as the buyer of services and of the seller of services. As a seller, it is the most painful thing to have some dude who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about screaming at you and acting like they know what they're talking about. So fucking frustrating. And then if you're buying it, and especially because I am technical, that was also very difficult because I did know what the problem was and I was still getting runarounds and shit. Not ideal. Anyways, so if you have, sorry, Jeff.
No, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, that must have been frustrating for him if he was. Yeah. I mean, I feel for the guy essentially.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
I feel for him because he was. I don't know. This team he was working with seemed like they really knew their stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I did feel like he didn't have the team behind him, maybe that was backing him up, so he was just kind of frustrated. No technical person wants to be yelled at. It's not helping anything.
No, it's not. And I mean, like, also one of the fatal flaws was that when you watch a video, you get the idea that they planned the launch based on what the contractors said it would be finished, which you never do. Do never do that. If you ever hire software contractors, never listen to when they say the deadline is, because it will never happen. That is just a key of software development. It's like half as much and twice the time is what people say, because bugs just pop up where you're like, yeah, that's easy. All you gotta do is this, this, and this. All right, sweet, we're done. And then you get into it and you're like, man, I forgot about like 10 different dimensions of this problem.
Yeah, where do you think? I mean, you've obviously been in software development for a while, and I've done it for whatever. I won't say how many years, but I've done it for a while. Where do you think this idea of like a hard-coded roadmap came from in crypto? Like, where did that idea come from? Because that's not how anything in the real world is developed at all, right? Like projects don't run like that. I've run projects. I've been a project manager a couple of times. Yeah. It just doesn't run like that. You do a baseline, you revisit it, you redo the baseline. Where do you think that came from?
I think it came out because people started to do it, and then the market responded well, and then the market got used to it, and then they started demanding it, right? And then it's a cyclical circle at that point. The person who made the let's call them memes in the traditional sense, right? They put out the meme that you can have a hard-coded deadline. Everybody's like, that's sweet, awesome. And then now they demand it from all the other projects that they follow. And it's like this evil loop. And so if you haven't ever done it and you come into it, you look at how people are doing it and then you copy it, right? Without necessarily questioning it until you're backed up against the wall and you realize why it doesn't work. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, like, so from that guy's example, right? Like they set their hard deadline, to the community as this date, and then he couldn't meet it. He just couldn't meet it, but he wasn't going to meet that anyway, I don't think. Right.
I don't know.
So how do you feel like we should approach deadlines going forward?
That's a good transition to the question.
Thanks, man.
Especially because Jeff is, as he becomes more incorporated in the development process of Lamden, is starting to see both sides, because he was originally like a community member. So yeah, Jeff, you've been on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. So really it has to come down to like the best way that I've found is like you tell people the problems you're trying to solve, and then you tell them what your progress is in solving those problems. So it's like you could say, like, for example, Lambdex. We've punted that. Why have we punted that? Well, because it's not really important right now. / I don't think that it's super compelling at this point in time. However, now that we have this atomic swap stuff done, we're kind of working on this other project that is giving some sort of like standout value prop to an exchange and kind of redefining it. Then it's like, oh, okay, now we should move forward. What are we trying to solve with Lambdex? What I'm trying to solve is just some sort of like peer-to-peer decentralized thing, and some little centralized, it works, right? It's an exchange that works. Just the headaches are gone to create an ecosystem, because you create an ecosystem and then life is good for that project. It's like Apple App Store. This is like Lamden's, I don't know, token thing. But it's more about that than I think like the actual application of like the software. And it's hard to explain. You get what I'm saying though?
It's hard. It's definitely hard to explain. I like the idea of like what we're doing with the new IEO and that type of thing, and I like trying to be in like a focal point for that type of thing, right? Assuming it works out, that's a great value proposition that I don't think anyone else really is, because focusing on stuff like that,
right,
which no one else is doing, is just listing a bunch of coins that are listed everywhere else. I mean, everyone's trying to do that.
Yeah.
And you say you get hit up a lot. I get hit up a lot too.
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah, and it's because you can say that you're the new exchange, but tomorrow you're not.
Right.
And so yeah, it's a weird thing, and I would like people to say, hey, we're this new exchange. This is our value proposition. We think you fit in here. That's a more compelling conversation to me.
Yeah, and it's completely true. And what sounded good like 9 months ago, as it changes over time and as other external factors change, you have to come to realize that solution might not be correct, right? So like interoperability was super hot, and now that things have simmered down, I don't think that it's not important, but it's something that like it's not as like you say interoperability, and then people are like, I'm in. That's all I need to hear, and it's like, okay.
What are people using this interoperability? I can't even say the word.
Yeah, I
can't. What are they using it for? What's the
why?
The value proposition?
Who cares about it?
Interoperability. Yeah, I don't quite understand, except for it being like the big buzzword.
Yeah.
What is the real reason for it?
The reason why I like it is because like what we can do is we can not only trigger like atomic swaps, but we can calling them like atomic triggers, where you trigger a code step, right? So you're like, okay, if the Bitcoin hits here at this endpoint, then a Lamden smart contract gets triggered. And then you can automate a lot of different things based on all these different assets, and you don't really have to manage it. That's why I like it.
And that's a real thing.
What do you mean?
Like we could do it today.
Yeah, I mean, we have to develop the atomic trigger, right? But I've developed the atomic swap before, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Let's take while we're on that tip, let's talk about our mainnet.
Sure.
And what the timeline for that is in your mind. I know we just talked about like not being able to set hard dates. And we talked about why that's fluid. So
yeah,
let's just talk about our mainnet. What do you think, where you guys are at,
So Seneca, the rewrite went way better than expected. I'll be very clear with that. I was like, this is gonna totally tank time that we weren't expecting again, and it's just, what do you do? So luckily, no. And the only reason why I was able to kind of take that and spin that around so fast is because I've been involved in the process. The smart contract's my favorite part of the project. So I've like watched the iterations of it building up and of it changing. And so for me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know exactly how these things work. And the protocol or the specification was there. It was the implementation that was not working. So it was very fast to get that up. In terms of the communication protocol, it's been running for a very long time. I think people forget that the testnet's still up. Nothing has happened to it. And so like the main protocol is fine. I think there's definitely a lot of more robust, like in terms of code organization that we can do. Again, implementation stuff, but like spec wise, it's been stable. And
it's been up, but like it's essentially right now it's one contract, right?
yeah, which is ironic, right? So there might be things that we don't know, and that's kind of also another frustration. And so like there might be things that we don't know that for some reason the smart contract, blows something up in the protocol that we just haven't been able to uncover right now because they haven't been integrated. And that's something that we need to spend a little bit of time on. So like what we're saying is that I think other people in the community have brought this up. They're like, you probably want to test it out first, right? Yeah, and that's completely true. I think like right now
that's RC, right?
RC, yeah. We're calling it like RCnet, release candidate network. And that's when we're actually getting like people from the community to set up nodes, install it on their computers, get the network up and running. Like right now it's on an AWS instance, and we click a button and then it like spawns the network, and then we're just like, yeah, sweet. And then if it's, if something happens, it tells us, and then it like reconnects it, and then it's managed. And that's not really how it's gonna work. So the next step is to get it on community hardware or to get it on nodes that are in the cloud that other people are running. And there's some DevOps tricks that you have to do because of the distributed network. But all in all, it's okay. I would say that like we're spending next week integrating Seneca with Cilantro, and I want to get that stuff stat out. But there are some things, because we've changed so much in Seneca, and because some of the code in Cilantro was not written like as good as it should have been, which is fine. It's not to say that it's not there, but there's like, when you're developing software, there's like, it's a scale, right? It's either like the cleanest, that takes forever to write, or it's like, all right, this is going to be good, and then we'll come back and we'll make it better. and the next time around. It's like that level where, okay, it's the next time around, and now that we're integrating, like this should have been abstracted before, but we didn't think about it, and now we're going to have to do extra work. And so there's some of that extra work that we do have to do. And this time around, because the integration is forcing us to refactor it, we'll take better steps to make sure that it is abstracted, because we don't want to do it again. So it's like, are you driven to abstract, or are you abstracting proactively? And there's an entire like concept of you aren't going to need it, YAGNI and like extreme programming and things like that, where there's a debate at which point you actually develop a feature, like when you actually need it or how before. And we're more on the line of like, let the need drive the development. Because
that's a bigger conversation for sure. I mean, yeah, anyone who's ever developed anything, like you just like, when do I get this out? Because all I'm doing is like thinking about what I need to, if I develop this, how, and I need to fix it later, or sorry, I need to upgrade it later. How easy is that going to be for me? But then eventually, at some point, you're not really getting anything out. You're just planning for the future.
Oh,
it's like creating a bank account you're never going to spend, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, I get that entirely.
Yeah, and like there's certain things that like, I don't know, I believe in like lean methodology. So it's like, get the simplest thing that works out there, and then that is going to be like your backbone, and then out of that backbone more complicated things will grow, but it's never going to deviate from, like, for example, a blockchain, transactions going through the system, that ain't changing. The logic in between might change, but it's going through, and that flow should be the first thing you work on, stuff like that.
For say anyone who's never deployed a node or ran a node or managed a node, what is the update process? Like, this is a decentralized network. How does an update roll out?
Yeah, so an update rolls out. So basically, the only thing that we can do is have an opt-in system, and if you want to opt out, that's your prerogative, right? But we can provide opt-in systems so that people can just basically subscribe to pushes, and as long as they're okay with that, that's fine. But they definitely cannot do that. Like, the whole point of the decentralized aspect is that we don't have control over it. So if we lose like the support of the community, and they just stop, they're like, you guys are pushing bad changes. Like, we push Stubuck's takeover contract. Stubucks, it's like a Stu 20% tax.
Stubucks.
Yeah, like, dog, no one's gonna update it, right? And you don't have to update it, is the thing. So like that, but there's also for the ease of updating, right? Like, that's the thing that, like, Ethereum's like, we don't know if everyone's gonna like update. It's like, yeah, you do. Like, you do. And if they don't, like, they're gonna fork after. They're not gonna fork before. So why are you making this hard on yourself? So like, we're utilizing certain tools to allow us to basically, like, if you're opt-in, you're good to go. You're going to get automatic updates. Of course, right? You have to trust the updates that are coming through, and we need to have a process, so you're not just like updating shit and you're just like, what the hell is this crap? But that's the basic process. On RCnet, it's probably going to be like that, and because they're all people that were opting in to run these nodes, probably not going to run into that problem. But if there's like potentially an Ethereum Classic event where there is something where people are like, oh, this is a divergence in thought, then the network is going to fracture, and that's basically why this stuff is so interesting. But yeah, there's something you can do about that. So make it as easy as possible. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't try to create forks if you don't have to, and allow them if people want them. Like, have a democratic process. If people want to spin off a fork, they can spin off a fork, and that's fine. You can't control.
Yeah, I think as soon as like a week after we release, there's going to be 7 forks. I think it's just how this works, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how this system's going to fork, because it's so different, and so like, it's so fast in terms of like the blocks that like forking it's like going to have some coordination involved. Like, you got to be like lockstep. You got to be like, all right, like, everyone is on the same exact page. There's no consensus disputes. and life is chill. Otherwise, like it might be I don't know if this is true, but if blocks are coming in at such a high rate, it makes you wonder, and this is a speculation, if like forks might have to like kind of be like, we're branching off here and then re-reconcile potentially, because like the throughput is just kind of coming through and the block rates are just coming through. That like, how are you like, okay, at block 10,000, we're just going to not listen to any of them anymore. And then, okay, I guess you can do that. And then fork like that. But I don't know, it'll be interesting to see.
So can we nail you down to like weeks or months, or like how? What's the time frame we're talking about here?
So this next week we're doing the integration of Seneca into Cilantro, and the goal is at the end of the week to get the version that would be the RCNet up on our internal deployment tools. And so, given everything like that goes well, life's chill. Of course, this is also the thing, like the Digitex guy should not have listened to when people said, okay, like June 30th, it's going to be done. We're releasing the software June 31st. No, don't do that. That's not true. Like they're going to give you something June 30th and they say it's done, but you never know. So like just the same way, we're not going to say like, okay, at the end of the week, we're launching it, because that's just going to set us up for destruction. What we're going to do is we're going to do this at the end of the week, and we're going to launch it, and we're going to give you guys progress updates and hopefully stay within that large time frame of what we said before. But at the end of the week, we'll be good to go to moving towards a better system. And then at the end of the week, we'll be, someone says there's no June 31st. Maybe that was the joke. No.
I love the internet, man.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't the joke. I'm not that
you're immediately wrong, so that's great.
But basically, like, yeah, so at the end of the week, I want to have a system that I can try to destroy. And then if I can destroy it, like that was the whole point of what AnarchyNet was going to do. And it was like at this weird quasi stability where like we have the contract up, but we don't have contract submission enabled right now. So like all of the transaction stuff is working good. And like, I don't know, Jeff, what's the wall time, would you say, for a transaction on AnarchyNet? It's fast.
I've been seeing. Well, you said that this really depends on how many people are using the network.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what do you call it? But you know, I've been seeing like 1 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen a little bit more than that. But I think at this point, because I'm testing the wallet so much, I'm like the only one using the network. Almost,
oh, that's funny.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
right?
breaking, right?
What's that?
I mean, it's working. It's not like you're hitting these snags.
No, absolutely no. The transaction always goes through. I've seen 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. I've seen 5 seconds, but I've also seen 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a function of you don't want to just keep writing blocks, empty blocks, right?
Right. So just a tidbit on that is that, and I actually want to kind of revisit this part of the protocol eventually, is that right now we have it set, if there's a low usage in the network, blocks get minted at a longer period of time. So you save space overall. So like,
makes sense.
Yeah. So if Jeff basically submitted a transaction, it could take up to 30 seconds because the blocks, when they're the slowest, are 30 seconds. But that's when he's like, sometimes it's 5 seconds, probably because he got it 5 seconds before the block got committed, sort of stuff, right? Because it builds the block. It basically like takes a whole bunch of stuff, and we call them transaction bags. So it makes a bag of transactions, and then it waits, and then 30 seconds passes, like, all right, cool, and it throws it down, and then it goes into the processors, and it gets spit out the end. So depending on, okay, and then the bag opens again, what time you are before it closes it, wall time's 30 seconds, but the transaction processing part of it is like your transaction itself, deducting the currencies and things like that. It's like minute. So, and as it speeds up, if more people are using it, that bagging thing gets much faster. So it'd be like maybe 1 second blocks, half a second blocks. It's like it tunes itself, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. And 3 months, 4 months past Mainnet, the network's going to be used enough just by people messing with it, screwing with it, that a don't think we'll see 30-second blocks much anymore.
Yeah, well, that kind of gets into like the interesting aspect that because also you don't know, you think of these things, right? And so when this part of the protocol was developed, it was like, oh yeah, that'll be great because we'll save on space. Well, it turns out that no one really, that is more of a nuisance actually, I think, that when it's slow, you're waiting longer than if it's fast. Like that doesn't make any sense. People mentally are more likely to allow the opposite, right? Oh, well, the network's busy, so taking a while.
It's true, but I guess what I was trying to say is that's a problem fixed by time, because if it's used, then it's going to be fast.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is
you're not going to plan on making a network no one's going to use.
Right. Yeah. But of course, you also have to prepare for anything. So, like, Boy Scouts, be prepared. So you should create the best protocol regardless. So basically, what I'm saying is that there's an alternative, and this is kind of like for like, let's say, enterprise deployments that aren't public, and then you can't expect them to be used by a public pool of people, which is a massive potential. You would say, okay, the bags instead are going to be like sort of size and time based. So like if a block hasn't been minted in the past 30 seconds, as soon as one comes in, the bag closes and it shoots down, right? And then it opens up and then it waits. And if nothing comes through in 30 seconds, as soon as one comes through, it'll go down. And so that would increase the wall time, but still prevent like just massive blocks kind of occurring. And I think that's something that that would make it a lot simpler.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm going to take a short break right now.
Cool.
You got to run. Do you want a question?
Give me a question. Someone give me a question.
Well, I got one here. Someone asked probably an hour ago, but there we go. Zoom.
Mainnet running. Yeah. Everything looks good. Or marketing, fixing website and advertising. These are like these are the things that everybody wants now. Which is, yeah, let's talk about it. So like the marketing aspect is like, it's hard to do. And like NEM is going out of business because they spent all their money on marketing. And like it's chicken for the egg type of situation. What I will say is that we're spinning up marketing resources internally for this other business development thing. And the entire point of doing that is to essentially transition resources into Lamden as we see success there, because the processes that we're developing right now are pretty much untested. And the way that we do like business is like sort of research based, where we're like, all right, we have a posit on how the network is or how the crypto world is working right now based on certain information. We're going to test this and see if it's a market fit, and then move forward further. It's like a lean methodology. It's like all my thing. When will you be able to tell us the NDA thing again? Well, I don't know which NDA thing, but if it's one of them, then hopefully very soon, which will be nice, and it's like almost there. But basically, look, the marketing thing, it has to be like, I don't want to do marketing for something that like then you have a whole bunch of users that come in, because I want people to like develop stuff, read the docs, self-service. I don't want to be like working with people. Like you can't scale a business if you're like just working with people. And it's like a consultancy can't scale because one account manager can only manage so many people before you need to hire another one. So like the capacity is linear. Where with a product like Facebook, they boom because like one engineer or one more server rack can like add 1 million more users, and they can manage 1 million more accounts, so to say. So just curious what your marketing scaling plans are. Yeah, so the point is that you get it to the point where it's self-service, where you can churn people in and they can download the application, they can start developing. There's a whole bunch of resources, and you don't need all the resources. You just need enough resources for them to be able to understand what's going on. You capture the ones who are probably the highest, like, you want to capture the people who are developers first, and it's easiest to capture the ones that are the best developers. And then as you capture them, you start to pick up traction, and then you have more time to build out the resources. So then you have more information for people who aren't as tech savvy. Is generally how it goes. And you see this type of strategy for like Tesla, right? They released a car that only the super duper like high end people have, and they have disposable income, so they can kind of test it and see how it works. They can start to build up their facilities so that they can bring the cost of manufacturing down, so that they can release something else. It's similar strokes, I guess. It's a business strategy, but for marketing in general, it's about time that like people have another alternative. I think Ethereum is, maybe you guys, I'll pause it to whoever's watching right now. I feel like Ethereum is getting a little dusty, and it's kind of looking old right now. And there isn't a lot of different movement on it. There hasn't been any killer dApps. And I'm a little wary that Ethereum 2, or whatever they're calling it, is too big of an update for them to completely predict in the laboratory. Like the in-lab studies, whenever you have an in-lab versus an in-market or in the field, vastly different, because there's a ton of different variables that you don't maintain for. So I read the Ethereum 2 spec, and I just feel like it's super complicated. Will we try to get others to swap over to Lamden's chain? Yeah, I think that is ideal. So anyone who's basically using Ethereum should look at ours, because they're going to have a better user experience. Jeff says he's back.
Hey.
Just talking about, like, I think it's a good market timing. Ethereum's a little dusty. What do you think? How do you feel about, like, what's your market perception of Ethereum at the moment? Like, how does it feel to you versus other projects?
Oh, well, it's definitely the big boy. I mean, it's definitely everyone's go-to. I know the company I used to work for, that's the only thing that they were looking at. They weren't looking at anything else. There's some kind of, what is this, Ethereum?
Enterprise Alliance?
Yes, that's what it is, exactly. And there's a lot of big players on that. And they got they're paying a lot of people a lot of money to investigate how they can use Ethereum to solve their problems, you know? And if you look at anything that launches these days, it's immediately an ECR20 token or ERC20 token.
Right.
Right. So they're definitely. I mean, you can't say that they're anything but huge. Right? They're the Goliath right now in crypto.
Yeah, I'm just saying that from like a market sentiment standpoint, they are looking kind of rusty. I haven't really seen a lot of activity, and that might just be because I'm like in my head and coding this thing. But like, what do you think about that?
So the reason, well, let's take a little step back here. The reason I found Lamden to begin was I was trying to make useful blockchain, and I put in, and I Googled how do I make a dApp? You know, how do I program this in Solidity? And it was a lot of nonsense. I didn't have time. I didn't have time to deal with that, right? And then I found Lamden, and my proposition was that I already do Python, and I understood immediately the technologies you were putting forth, and that was eye-opening. It was eye-opening to me to say, like, okay, if this is released, I can definitely make something out of it. I can definitely use it. Like any other framework I would get off the internet, I can figure this out. And I wasn't willing to spend the time with Ethereum. So I think, well, Ethereum is caught up in the crypto craze, right? It's just another way to trade cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So it's not usable necessarily.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that make a lot of money to use it, but I don't think the regular person who's not getting paid, $250,000 a year has any idea how to use it.
Yeah.
They know how to load up MetaMask or and transfer tokens around, but I don't think they know how to actually use it in a reasonable way. And I think that I get caught in this too. When we originally released testnet, I went on there and I was programming Seneca contracts. But I was stuck in this mind space of like, how do I make something? How do I make a dApp? What do I want to do? And I was just stuck in this loop of, this is all just like, I'm just trying to reinvent the wheel, right? And we're yet to see somebody come out and actually make use of blockchain in a way that no one thought of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that someone just needs something. They need that catalyst, that kickoff point. And I think Seneca could definitely be that, right? Could definitely be someone who just like goes to the webpage, goes, "Oh, this looks easy enough. I know Python," and they have an idea and they just run with it. So I think that's what Ethereum is missing. They're missing that regular guy coming in and just being like, I got an idea. What do I use? And Google it, like, how do I program blockchain? Right.
I mean, dude, you look at the Ethereum website, that shit has not changed since like 2 years ago. And it does not tell you crap about anything. Doesn't tell you, they don't care. They don't care. And that's fine. But like, that's not what we want to do. What I want to do is I want to get eyeballs on the site. And what Jeff is saying is like, get AdWords or whatever around that. How do I make a DApp? Dog. It ain't going to be, you're not going to be seeing Ethereum. I don't know what I see. How do I make a DApp? Yeah, there's like, oh, wait, do I have ad blocker? No, I have ad blocker out. There's no ads for it. So that means they're probably hella cheap. If there's no competition for like the AdWords, then you just scoop them up. And that's the name of the game. And like, honestly, it sounds stupid, but like, it's not a complicated thing. And there's not like a secret sauce. And there's not something where it's like, oh, well, if you were like doing this, then the project would be like exponentially better. No, there's overvalue and then there's undervalue. And I would rather be on an undervalue side until I prove myself, because if you're on an undervalue side, there's no potential, there's no downside room, right? You saw Digitex do 60 to like boom, drop. Why? Because everyone was expecting this shit that didn't actually exist. And so, yeah, here you go. Someone says, but the first things people click on is a YouTube video. Yeah, exactly. So like things like doing just an entire YouTube series, spending like 3 weeks or so, just me doing that. That's business development as well, in a way. I can see that as a business development move, because getting eyeballs on it. Like, you go into a room and no one knows what you're talking about. It's a lot harder to sell a solution versus going in and being like, hey, yeah, Lamden. And they're like, oh, yeah, I heard about that. I saw your videos, We actually have, like, candidates sometimes when we hire people who are like, yeah, I watched your videos. So, like,
The videos are good.
Videos are good. I hope this one's good.
Yeah. So I think that our ability to just say, like, hey, how do you make something? How do you make blockchain things, right? However you want to say it is huge, because we're going to be able to say, how do you make it? Well, here you go.
Yeah.
This is how you make it, right? And I think you got the puzzle pieces, with the bubble.
Yeah.
Because with the back end, front end, you got to meet those together, marry those together, and just say, like, do this and then do this, and then you can create your idea. And then let them run with it, though. Let somebody come in and create something you never thought of.
Right.
All right.
Nah, honestly, man, it takes time, and I don't think people understand, like, I don't think that's true, but I think, like what we were saying before, which is, how do you convince people to get out of that mentality of hard deadlines? I don't think people really understand the process enough to appreciate always that, like, this situation of what has happened up to this point is insane to begin with. The whole idea that, like, the community came together to support this and trust me enough to be able to get to this particular point to prove to you that I can do this is insane. Like, I can't say, like, it's immense how much that means to me. And that being said, this is like something that is big and takes a long time. And there's like, everyone's like holding their breath, for a moment. And then it's like, okay. And then it's, the more content we can have, the better, the more, like, that's the whole point of the pixel game and things like that. Like, create an interesting application that people like. Create something like in Python or some sort of visual language, integrate it with like a whole bunch of different things so that people just are like, oh yeah. Because I mean, like, it's us, dude. It's like a butterfly flaps its wings, There are design decisions in code that you make them, and it makes, at the end of the day, so much easier to do so much shit. Like, we don't need a client in any other app because it's all JSON. We have like one JavaScript app. We probably, for the transaction building, I want to investigate if we can modify that and make it just JSON. But like, dude, you can ping this, all of the, it's extremely straightforward to use, and that's the point. And you should be able to integrate it like WordPress plugin. Okay, yeah, sure, that's not going to take a long time. You just drop it in. Can't really do that with Ethereum. It's the way that they developed it. Unfortunately, they made design decisions which prevents them from doing that, and it shoots themselves in the foot. Whereas if they listen to how software has been developed for all these years, they would have adopted these things. Like, they're using JSON RPC, which is not a problem, but no one really uses JSON RPC. Everybody uses just RESTful, you know? And yeah.
RESTful's the way to go.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't even, that's again, I couldn't wrap my head around using Solidity, and just, that just because I didn't have the time to put into it, right? I'm not saying people can't understand it. I'm saying I didn't have the time to put into it at that juncture in my life.
Right.
So I don't know how many people are like that, but if it was as simple as like a RESTful API that I could plug into, wow, that would have been great, right? So
yeah. So Cypher, appreciate the words. Yeah. No.
This community is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've been in other communities, not running them, but like, in them, and they are very toxic. And the ability for this community to just function by itself with very little managing is crazy. It's a very, very good community. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. It feels like a club more than like a Telegram channel, where it's other Telegram channels feel like one-way blast of like information from one end, and then just admins just like blasting on the other side. And it's like, this is a collaborative process, you know what I'm saying? It's a very mechanized, like aggressive approach to just be like, so yeah, I'm not into that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. The GitHub, the updates from GitHub really, especially because there was a moment there, maybe a couple months, 3 months, where like there wasn't a whole lot of it recently. But since it's been hitting hard, the turnaround's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of people in there, just like the enthusiasm sparks up. And like I'm not in any other. I don't know if you are, but I'm not in any other Telegram that has that functionality. And I don't know why people aren't doing it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because the people, you don't have to say anything. People come in. Does this coin get? I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And frankly, the only reason why you haven't seen them for a few months is because it's on the Enterprise Edition, which we're keeping private for the time being. And it's like, now I'm on Seneca and I'm blasting away. We're probably going to do integration with Cilantro, so we'll be blasting away. So you'll see all that stuff. And then on swaps, when you're working on swaps, I don't think that the wallet was hooked into it. Or maybe it was. No, it was. I have seen pushes from you.
Yep.
Yeah. But I agree. It's like, I think it's because it has to do with like, oh, well, this is like a professional, like this is what it is. And it is a traditional professional institution where all the old rules apply, and it's just not. And that gets you into a lot of trouble, just in terms of how you approach things. And yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't either. I think it's probably because a lot of these projects are not protocol projects really anymore. So what do they?
You think a lot of it's outsourced and they just can't do it?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I think we still had it hooked up for shit when we had contractors helping us out with Clove.
That's true.
Yeah,
actually, that's true.
Yeah, we had it hooked up for that. Yeah. I see you're asking like a posit for questions. I think if there's any other questions.
If not, man, do you want to wrap this thing up, or?
Sure, we could. I'm trying to think of like a good ending. will you scale up the company, or do you even need to after launch? Yeah. So kind of
you are scaling up now, I think.
Yeah, we are scaling up. Yeah, we kind of have this like we pulled up this team for this like business development thing, right, Jeff? And that was fast.
Yeah.
I believe in like quantum leaps. Where have you ever read Think and Grow Rich?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
It's kind of stupid, and you kind of read it and you're like, this is bullshit. But there's a story in it where it's like you don't even know if it's true, right? And this guy is like Napoleon Hill. He's like, there was a preacher, and he was asking for donations for his like service project, and he was not having a whole bunch of things. And then he woke up one day, he's like, I'm getting $1 million. I've decided I'm getting $1 million. You know, fuck everything else. I'm getting my fucking money. The world owes that to me. And then he did. You know what I'm saying? And I believe in that to a degree. It does have some validity. Is that like, you're like, we're doing this, and it happens, right? And I feel like that happened in there. And I hope that happens more after this thing is like the first version's out. You know, like, boom, we're doing this. Boom, next step. And that's where I think a lot of the scaling builds up, because I feel like we have like almost like an independent unit there for that particular endeavor that I would feel comfortable maintaining that and then bringing it up further, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
When will we hear? When are we gonna get Kevin on the line?
Yeah, I'll get Kevin on the line. He's a goofball. I've known him for a while. He's not a CEO.
I just figured out he's Canadian as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how Canadian he really is.
What does that mean?
Because I went to high school with him, so he wasn't in Canada then.
Oh, that's strange.
Right. He was born in China. He was born in China. Like someone was born in like Germany, but they like showed up here. Then I think his parents moved to Toronto area, and then I think from there they moved to Cleveland, Ohio. Okay,
well, this is starting to sound more like a trader. Is that?
I don't know, man. That's between you and Kevin.
Do his parents still live in Toronto?
In China?
In Toronto.
Oh, in Toronto. No. Because he went to high school with me. Who would drive him to school?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yes, I don't know.
Anyways, he comes from like a VC background. He worked at Plug and Play, which is like a very big incubator. So like he understands the dance of Silicon Valley. It's a dance, and it's a stupid fucking dance.
So what is he doing at Lamden then? Like what did you hire him for?
Yeah, so he came in just to do general business development, to be honest, and it was a good situation in which he was like able to come work for us, and so I was like, hell yeah, let's go. And he is bringing like, I would say like seriousness to the understanding of like the tech field and like who to talk to and introductions and all that business development. And we did a ton of business research on real estate applications. We talked to like the president of like a $1 billion fund, and it was funny because it was, I guess you could say it was an unfortunate meeting in some regards, but he's like, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't give a fuck about blockchain. I'm like, yo, okay. You know,
you're like, well, you will in a couple of years.
Well, no. And what he told us is that he is so out of the zone that we would potentially be in. And what that tells me is that like these big dudes, they're not gonna like everyone's like, oh, just you wait. The institutions are gonna run shit and they're gonna like put their finger down, they're gonna stomp you. What I got out of that meeting is that this guy doesn't give a fuck. He's like eating his lunch. He's like oversubscribed. You know, his fund is oversubscribed. He doesn't care. Like, why would he care? His clients do not want to take on a massive risk. crypto has that massive risk persona still. He doesn't care. And it might not be until, some companies just now are getting into mobile applications. Might be that long. I don't know. And so what it showed me was that there's not.
I'll tell you this: taxi companies didn't care about apps until Uber came around.
Right, exactly. So you just go, Just,
now my local taxi company in rural Canada has a great app.
Really?
Which I never thought I would ever say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never thought my taxi company would have a great app.
Yeah.
So they do. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I believe it, and it's like these guys are too busy, and that's what I got away from that meeting. What I got away from that meeting was like, you know what, just fucking do it. Don't listen to anyone else. Don't like try to get buy-in from this guy. This guy's not going to get buy-in, and just go. I'm talking to people all the time, talking to like the community here that's saying that they want X, Y, and Z. Give them X, Y, and Z.
Someone just asked a question about the competition.
What competition?
So yeah, and I guess that's your point though, is like, don't worry about what other people are doing. Just,
oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's kind of like, we get asked all the time, well, how do you compare this? How do you compare that?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, well, I don't know, unless I went and looked at them, I don't really know. But are you asking them how they compare to us? Right?
Right.
Because really we have a vision, we're just trying to execute. So
right.
You can get stuck in that loop of just trying to, what are you going to do? You're going to look down, what are they doing? Should we be doing that?
Right.
This whole loop, right? So
here's what I will say. No one is focusing, and I also like, there's a lot of art of war stuff that I follow. So like, people are like, why aren't you out in the open and like spreading it all out? We are not ready to be out in the open. I'm not going to go out in the open and tell people what exactly we're doing. I'm going to tell you guys what we're doing, but that's, to a degree. No one is focused on the specific angle that we are very, very, very focused on. And all the decisions that we make are justified by other businesses doing that. Generally, the businesses that are hyper disruptive in Silicon Valley employ these techniques. And all of the companies that people compare us to do not. And that's not to say that they're not going to potentially be successful or potentially be a competitor. But from my point, I do not think of these people ever. I only think about like these companies when people ask me about them, and then I have to come up with an answer. That's seriously it. I don't respond to them. I want them to respond to me, right? Like, I would rather be like, Apple dictates the market. They don't listen to anybody. They don't do anything in terms of like competitive analysis. They instead have a problem with people stealing, their tech away from them and things like that. I'd rather be that person, because you are dictated to such a high degree that no one else can touch you. And that's the thing. Everybody's kind of like fucking with each other and like, oh, well, we're basically like this, but like just a little bit different. We're like the blank of blank. All right, you guys are all in the same zone together. I'm not really interested in that. I'm already X degrees ahead of you. And then when you see me there, you are not going to be able to catch up. It's going to take you this long to catch up, and then I'm going to be even further, And so,
right.
Yeah.
You don't want them, but you don't want to chase their tail, right?
No. Everyone's like, yeah, that's like starting off. It's like, Aon has so much more hype than you. You guys are fucking stupid. Dog, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that company for a long time, and I don't really care about that company. And it doesn't matter, because when I listen to that company, I'm not compelled. And I think people are going to be compelled when they see what we're doing. And that's the entire point, is like you're saying, Jeff, I want to make a distributed application. I don't care if its name is Aon or its name is Cosmos or its name is Lamden. I just want to build this thing. No one's addressing that. Everyone.
Well, yeah, when I create a website, I don't care what the framework is.
Right.
So when I make a blockchain app, I don't necessarily need to care. People care a lot initially because maybe they've participated in the ICO or they're invested in it. But as a developer, and I'm not invested, I'm coming to it fresh, I don't necessarily care. I need to look at it that way, right?
No one does care. You're totally right. And that's the entire point. Is like, you do not have to get on board with the ideology or the hype train or the fanboy shit. That's not the point. So yeah. Cool.
All right, man. Well, let's wrap this up. For anyone listening, I'm sure you already follow us on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I am sure you already look at our Reddit page. Probably not as much as you should. And you probably follow us on Telegram, but we have an Instagram account now.
Oh yeah, we have a new office manager who's opened up an Instagram account.
Yeah, and she's doing a hell of a job. We got a bunch of good pictures of Stu's amazing shirt selections.
Oh yeah. Wait, I don't look at the Instagram, so I don't even know if she's like taking pictures of us still.
Well, she does the updates there now, and she dumbs them down. I don't know if that's the correct word, but she tries to make them more approachable.
Yeah,
I probably should have said.
Yeah.
And she does a good job of that. And I'm stalling right now because I don't remember the. Okay, so it's Lamden.io.
Yeah,
you can find it there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah.
We got a lot of flack for missing that community Q&A, so I think this has been really good.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're right. I hope this scratches that itch, and I hope this scratches the itch because we have not responded to Jason for like a week, and I'm sure he is not cool with us. Sorry, Jason.
Well, he's gonna have to. He's probably gonna have to summarize this whole video into an update.
Yeah, he should just push this video and be like, "That's the update." Okay.
There you go, Jay.
All right. Yeah, appreciate it too, Jeff. I mean, it's 2 hours now, so I appreciate that. And
no worries.
Yeah, and everybody here listening, you know, like Jeff said, and like I will say, the community, like that is vital, and I think we both mean it, where it's like not every community is like this, and that plays like a vital role in like me going and like doing what I got to do. So like shout out to you guys, A+. You know, I hope that as it grows even more, you know, we even more stuff happens, more people get involved, and like whatever this thing is, like I don't try to put myself into it. It's a different thing, you know. It's Lamden, and we're all here working on Lamden. So, you know, let's just make it what it is. So cool. Thanks, guys.